how to find safety and stability. So let's start with talking about Rick's story. So Rick um, grew up in a rough neighborhood and he wanted to feel safe. So as a young man, walking home from the grocery store, walking home from school, he felt a little bit unsafe and he wanted to find a way that he can make himself feel safe. So he came up with the idea that he would affiliate himself and join a street gang. And so he joined up with a local street gang in his neighborhood. And this indeed did provide him some sense of protection. He also had that group camaraderie. Of course, do you feel like the choice that he made is really one that was going to make him feel more safe? As you can imagine, over time, doing things with this gang means he was involved in very violent scenes. He would be a part of violence and he would make enemies because those who were also in the neighborhood had a rival gang. And being a part of that rival gang, they would hate those in his gang. And so he had these enemies. So now he really had to watch his back, specifically for enemies that would be gunning to kill him. And so now he's very worried that these things and these threats to his life are existing. And he starts to have nightmares and bad dreams. And he starts to become paranoid when he's out at a restaurant with his mom and his sisters. He would be like trying to sit with his back against the wall, and he would start to carry a weapon with him. And overall, after a couple of years being a part of this gang, he realized the very thing that he did to try to make himself feel safe is actually robbing him of his sense of safety. It's robbing him of his peace. And he needed to find a way out of this gang, which wasn't easy. Likewise, for trauma survivors like Rick, you may be doing things to try to make yourself feel safe that are actually robbing you. Trauma survivors default to what I call maladaptive coping mechanisms, which means that it seemed to be the right thing to do at the time. And maybe it did work for a time, but when they continue in these same type of coping mechanisms later in life, it's actually going to do the opposite for them, like it did for Ricky. For instance, emotional suppression or emotional numbing, shutting down your feelings to avoid pain and vulnerability or disconnecting from your emotions entirely. Does that actually make you feel safe? Initially, it can make you feel like you're going to feel safe, but then down the line, what's going to happen? Now you are numb and disconnected from your emotions and you don't feel like you know who you are, then you don't understand how to have relationships. And by not understanding how to have relationships or how you're feeling, you don't feel very safe. You feel like you're going to get abandoned in relationships and so on. On the other hand, some people try to use control and avoidance, such as perfectionism, such as over planning, such as avoiding people, places, situations, avoiding their triggers, such as isolation from all people, cutting off all relationships, staying home to avoid any perceived threats. Have you done any of these things? Try to make yourself feel safe. Perfectionism, where you're really trying to control the outcome to avoid criticism, to avoid failure, to have a sense of accomplishment, to be worthy of that love that you didn't get as a kid, causes more procrastination because you're working so hard and you're high achieving so high that you just kind of crash and burn when it comes time to do it again and to do it again and to do it again. You can't keep it up. It's unrealistic. Not to mention perfection doesn't exist. It's a maladaptive coping mechanism. And then you got the over planners, the ones who say, I can't do anything without a plan. I have to have a plan. Where do you want me to go? There's no plan. If there wasn't a plan, then how can I obsessively preparing for every possible scenario to prevent surprises doesn't work. If you have that mantra, oh, I don't like surprises. Well, you don't like life because life is full of surprises. No, nobody likes an unpleasant surprise, right? So maturity would be to recognize this is a maladaptive coping mechanism, thinking that I can over control the situation to make sure that I'm not ever surprised is unrealistic. Some trauma survivors use people pleasing, overworking, or high achieving micromanaging others in order to try to give themselves a feeling of safety, right? So with the people pleasing, you're just going to agree and appease with everyone to avoid any conflicts and to avoid rejection or whatever it is you fear that people are going to do to you if you don't agree and just keep everybody happy. One woman said, I can make everyone happy. I know I can. I'm like, no, you can't. You cannot. She's like, yes, I can. I really believe I can make everyone happy. And I'm like, you're making me unhappy right now. Like, you cannot actually make everyone happy. You don't have control over how other people are going to feel. People pleasing is a maladaptive coping mechanism. It's a maladaptive, that means it doesn't work anymore, way of trying to stay safe. It might have worked in childhood when you tried to please your parents to a degree, but if you're honest, it really didn't even always work then. You were in an impossible situation as a child. Recognize that, but we're not there now. Overworking, like using work or productivity to distract or gain a sense of self or a sense of control, that's not going to bring you safety. It's not going to bring you safety. All it's going to do is cause you to lose out on other areas of life while you're excelling in only one area. So then you're just going to be imbalanced. Hopefully, you'll get a lot of money out of the deal, but then you just have a lot of money and terrible relationships. And where does that leave a person? Not feeling very safe, not feeling a sense of peace and stability. Or you could be someone who micromanages others. So this is where you try to control other people's behaviors in order to prevent the feelings of powerlessness or whatever. And sometimes we tell people, you can't say this word around me. You can't do this around me. Don't do that around me. Right. And there's like a fine line, right? You can set boundaries, but when you micromanage people to the point where they can't even be themselves, you've actually crossed over into a maladaptive coping mechanism. One of the ways you know the difference is knowing that the reason why you're doing that and telling them what they need to do is because you don't know how to make yourself feel safe. So you're actually looking to the other person to make you feel safe, which makes you like Ricky, who joined the gang in order for him to feel safe, but being in a gang made him feel less safe than ever. Other people are not the answer to our feeling that we're not safe. Some people turn to alcohol and substance abuse. Some people turn to food, overeating, undereating. They like to micro control the food, right? So they're like, nope, I'm not going to have this and I'm not going to have that, or I'm just not going to eat. Does that make you feel safe? Not ultimately. It's going to put you in the hospital ultimately. And then what happens when you're in the hospital? Now everyone else has control. Now everyone else has to call the shots. Now you're at the mercy of the nurses and the doctors and the people with the power of attorney. You don't want to end up there. That's not going to make you feel safe. Overeating, on the other hand, same thing, different side of the pill, right? With the overeating, it's like, oh, finally, no one can tell me what to do. I'm just gonna, and then how do you feel? How do you feel when you start seeing it affect your body? And when you start disliking the way you look and feeling like other people are judging you based on the way you look as well. And guess what? They might be. When you can't fit in a proper size seat anymore, it starts affecting your life and costing you more money. And then you end up where at the doctor, at the hospital, at the mercy of other people, right? It's not going to make you safe. Abusing food or avoiding food is not going to make you safe. In all of these, you'll notice they're always extremes on one side or the other. We got to go for balance. Food's good. Food is good. We got to go for balance, though. Utilize it for the nutrition of our bodies, not become a slave to it. Some trauma survivors will go to compulsive behaviors such as shopping, gambling, or other compulsive activities. Or if you have obsessive compulsive disorder, you'll just try to control something totally illogical, right? Like one of my clients said, he likes to do things in even numbers. whatever that means. So at one random point, at some random points in his life when he's doing an activity, like flipping a light switch, he's like, "Oh, I flipped it only once, so I got to flip it two times or something like that." And it's just a made up rule. We just create rules in our head when we have obsessive compulsive disorder, and then we just think, "Oh, if I follow this rule, then I'll have control of something." But that's the opposite is true because now you're out of control. Now you don't feel a sense of control. Now your sense of control is gone because you're too busy trying to feel control by following rules. But if you have to follow a bunch of rules all the time, then you're not really in control. It's too much. And all the compulsive shopping, I'm looking at some of you, them Amazon bills. Uh-huh. I see you. You can't hide behind that screen. Some of you guys got packages and packages coming to the door. You get something, you get a new sweater. Oh my God, I'm going to be happy when I get this new sweater. You get the sweater, you take it to the closet, and what happens? You put it right next to all the other sweaters that look exactly like it that you never wore. Yeah, you're overdoing it. You're overdoing it with the shopping. When you bring the sweater in and you got a bunch of sweaters that already look like the same sweater, but you didn't wear the other sweaters, that's how you know you're overdoing it with the shopping. We should only be shopping to get what we need. Okay. I'm not saying it's not okay to occasionally enjoy yourself on a shopping trip. But when you find yourself with a car full of Goodwill stuff that you never, why is your bags and bags? Why every couple of months we got bags and bags to go to the Goodwill? We're trying to give it away. You can't give your stuff away. Hey, your daughters, nieces, nephews. Hey, hey, I got some stuff over here. No, you have a shopping addiction. And you need to just stop spending the money on things that you don't actually need because you were traumatized in childhood. Guys do this too. It's not just the ladies. Guys do this too. You'll go over some men's house and they have a sneaker collection, right? They got a little successful, and in there they'll have a whole closet or a whole bedroom just sneakers. This is my sneaker collection. Yeah, it's so cool because I don't know. When I was a kid, I was poor and I couldn't buy sneakers. Now I have all the sneakers. Sir, there's too many sneakers. You can only wear two at a time. Why do you have 100 pairs? You know, what is that? It's obsessive compulsive behavior or doing it with suits, whatever. It's obsessive compulsive behavior. Does it make you feel safe? No, the opposite. If you value that sneaker collection, now you got to get a security system because someone might come in and try to steal your sneaker collection. It doesn't make you feel safe, especially when you check that bank account, that balance, that credit card balance. Ooh, ooh. That doesn't make you feel safe to feel like you can't even manage your own money. It's embarrassing. Some of us would be embarrassed to let someone see our finances, and then we don't get the help we need, right? You don't want to hire an accountant or a banker because you're like, I don't want anyone to see, right? I don't want anyone to see what I have, what I spend my money on. All maladaptive coping mechanisms. Some trauma survivors will default to catastrophizing, which is where you constantly imagine the worst case scenario, and that way you'll prepare for the danger. Seems genius, right? I'll just think about what the worst thing that can happen is, and then that way I won't be surprised if it happens. Well, if you think about the worst things that will happen, then your subconscious brain thinks that that thing is happening. So then it gives you the chemicals as if you're living in that reality that you're creating in your mind. So you're creating a reality that is dangerous for yourself. And you're living in the chemical state of being in the constant danger, the worst thing that could happen. And did it actually protect you from it happening? No. All the catastrophizing in the world will not protect you from the bad thing that's coming anyway. It's coming, but the thing that's crazy is it doesn't come all the time, but you live in the worst case scenario all the time. The worst thing only comes every once in a while. And it's better to just not be worried about it and then it comes and then you deal with it than to live 364 days in the worst case scenario when the worst case scenario only happens one out of the 365 days in the year? Doesn't make sense. It's a maladaptive coping mechanism. You think you're going to make yourself feel safe. Catastrophizing doesn't make you feel safe. It's the opposite. Some people try self-blame. Try, I feel control if I just blame me for everything. Oh my goodness, my son did this and he's a grown man, so this is my fault. Well, I hope that made you feel better, but I doubt that it did. Self-blame is a form of self-abuse. Self-blame is a form of self-abuse. Negative self-talk. I am such a piece of trash, blah, blah. You're cursing yourself out. That'll make me feel good. No, it's going to make you feel terrible. The brain is programmed through language. When you speak language, your brain actually follows that program. It's an AI system, so it's not smart enough to know that it's supposed to take it with a grain of salt. If you say I am trash, then your brain goes, "Oh, okay." And guess how you're going to start to feel over time you keep up that sort of talk? You're going to feel like trash. And then you're going to come into a therapist's office and you're going to be like, I don't know why I feel like trash. And the therapist's going to be asking all the questions and you're like, I don't know. I don't know why. No, nothing is bad. Nothing happening bad is happening in my life. I don't know why I feel terrible. You feel terrible because you programmed yourself to feel that way. In relationships, sometimes we try to make ourselves feel safe by clinging to unsafe relationships. So we're like, well, this is familiar to me. So I'm going to stick with the narcissist because that's what I know. My parents were narcissists. So that's just what I know. And meanwhile, your entire life is you're getting beat verbally, mentally, beat, beat, beat. And then one day you wake up and go, oh, what have I done? What have I brought my children into? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get out. I don't know how to think. I'm too gaslit to be able to think properly. Really common question I get, how do I leave? Very common question. How do I leave? Ma'am, there's something on your building that you're in called a door. You walk to that door, you turn that knob, and then you walk out of that door. But we can't think anymore. When we just stay in abusive relationships, toxic relationships, we can't think for ourselves. How do I leave? That's a we don't understand. We really mean that. I don't know how to leave. That's what we do for ourselves when we stay in that toxic relationship. Sometimes we'll purposely create issues, push boundaries, create conflict just to see if other people will stay. You ever do that? Or you ever the toxic one? You purposely make a big issue about something and then just wait and see. I bet they're gonna leave me. I bet they're gonna do something bad to me. And then you wait for them to respond terribly, and then you see, I told you, I knew it. I knew they were gonna do that to me. Some people avoid intimacy. They keep the relationship superficial and they avoid vulnerability. And then that way they think they'll stay safe. But then their partner leaves and says, you're not emotionally available. And then they go, oh, see, I knew it. I knew I had to keep myself safe. But you're the reason why the partner had to leave. Some people use dissociation. They're escaping into fantasy. They're zoning out, checking out, daydreaming, using video games. Some people go as far as to get into bodily related self-harm, inflicting pain on themselves so that they can gain a sense of control. And some people do the opposite. They get a good routine of exercising and then they overdo the exercising. So they over-exercise to the point where they push their body to the limit so that they can feel worthy or in control of something. Some survivors have explosive anger. So they yell at you, rage out, react strongly so that they can try to scare away the thing that they're scared of, I guess. All that. And then later that what do they, oh, I really regret. I feel so stupid. I feel so dumb. So all of these are just some examples of the ways that you've been trying to make yourself feel safe, but none of them actually lead you to feeling safe. So what's the answer? How can we as trauma survivors actually really feel safe? in relationships, in our life? How can we actually really feel safe? If you have a pen or paper, I want you to write down this mantra. No matter what happens, I'm in control. This means that no matter what problem comes, I can solve it. No matter what the obstacle is, I can overcome it. No matter how dysregulating a person or a situation gets, I can re-regulate myself. Okay, so you can word that however you want, but you need to create this paradigm, this mantra in your brain. No matter what happens, I trust myself to be able to handle it. Because in all of these other ways that we're trying to get a sense of safety, we're trying to like control the other person or control something that doesn't make sense. We're going to extremes, and it's not making you feel safe. But when you recognize, when you understand that you are capable of re-regulating yourself, bringing yourself to calm, to balance, no matter what, then you no longer have to feel unsafe or unstable. No matter what happens, I can bring myself back. No matter what comes my way, come what may, I can stay balanced. So it helps us to get there in the first place, right? Coming to meetings like this is one great way to achieve balance. Watching my videos on YouTube every day, one good way to achieve balance. Downloading my app, utilizing the daily meditations on the app, one good way to achieve balance. Doing regular sessions with me or a therapist trained by me, one good way to obtain balance, right? So these are just some of the ways that we can help ourselves to obtain balance. One guy said, Roman, I got your book, I read it, and I healed myself. I said, well, great. That that worked out. What'd you spend? $19 or something? One good way to achieve balance, right? We got to find something that works for us. That's why I provide a variety of tools. On the app, there's a tool on there called Jotbot, right? And it's on the top where it has a little icon for chatting. You hit the chat button on the top of the app, and then it takes you into an option called Jotbot. You click on that, and what you have is an AI therapist that's trained by me. So it's a robot, but I trained it. So I spent hours teaching it how to bring clients through the job process. That's why it's called the job bot, right? And so you tell it what the problem is, what sort of emotional dysregulation you're having, especially for low self-worth, for anxiety, for depression, for anger issues. That's what JotBot's trained on. Type it in, and you talk to it like it's therapist, and it'll talk back to you like it's a person. It's not, it's a bot, but it's trained in the techniques. And what people have found is, man, I talked to your JotBot, and it was kind of helpful. Like I was here, and then it brought me down to here. I feel better. What are these? These are tools that you have that are free to use, that you can use to stabilize yourself, so you don't have to walk around feeling afraid that you can't bring yourself back to an equilibrium. You don't have to worry. Everything's going to be fine. Being in control means staying out of fight, flight, freeze, fawn when there is not an actual life or death emergency. When there is a life or death emergency, you don't have to worry about those either, because when they come, then you will use fight, flight, freeze, fawn to get through them, because life or death emergencies naturally trigger trauma response. And then you use your trauma response and you'll get through it. No problem. If it's an immediate life or death emergency, you'll be able to handle it because you're already designed with the system. That's what trauma response is. The problem is that you're just staying stuck in that system. I got to get you out of there and get into a more sophisticated system. So instead of the four F's, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, for daily life, which is 99.99% of everything else in life, we're not supposed to be using the four F's. We're supposed to be using the four D's. Instead of fight, discussion. Instead of flight, disconnection. Instead of freeze, deliberation. Instead of fawn, deference. When we understand the four Ds, you are unflappable. Nothing, nothing can take you and keep you off your equilibrium. Even if it brings you off your mark for a second, you're going to be able to get right back on your mark when you understand the four Ds: discussion, disconnection, deliberation, deference. Everything in your life can be solved by the four Ds. Everything, everything can be handled and confronted best in the four Ds. Not some of the things, everything, 99.99%. We just need to utilize the skills. That's what, if you see people who are very in control, very stable, that is what they're doing. I'm just breaking it down into code so it's easy for you to remember. They use the four Ds. They can't tell you what they are because they just naturally know them because they just figured it out. And so now you can figure it out, and you can teach it in a classroom. Discussion, disconnection, deliberation, deference. Discussion is your ability to assert yourself, which is to tell the truth. And it involves being able to advocate for yourself, such as setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is just creating rules, standards, limitations, and then informing the other person is asserting the boundary. Hey, next time we're together, I'm going to need for you to talk a little less about blah, blah, blah. Setting a boundary, just letting them know there's things that something you're doing. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it when you do it. So I'm kind enough, loving enough to let you know what it is so that now I'm empowering you with the information you need to not be someone I hate. It's very loving. I appreciate it when people set boundaries with me. It's as painful and embarrassing as it might be in the moment. I appreciate it because it's an act of love, because now I know what I need to do to not be hated by them, to not be unlikable, to not be irritating to them. And that's why you should tell people what your boundaries are, which is when you feel discomfort, you create a rule and then you tell them, hey, you know what I need you to do for me? And you tell them, you know what's making me feel uncomfortable? And you tell them so that you empower them to show up as better for you. And then you're able to actually have a relationship where you are authentic. Everything's solved in the D's, discussion. Sometimes they don't respect your boundaries. They don't respect your discussion. One time I was talking to my toxic mother and I was like, Mom, I'm trying to talk, but while you're kind of like talking over me, and then she just walks away while I'm in the middle of talking. You ever have somebody act like that? They don't have the emotional maturity to meet you in a discussion, to see you, right? So what do you do if someone does that? Four D's: disconnection. Disconnection. I gave it a moment, but within about not more than 15 more minutes within the evening, I could see that this was a person that I wasn't going to be able to have any type of relationship with that evening, and I just left. That's all. No anger, no crashing out, just packed my stuff and go. You can't have relationships with people who are too emotionally immature to be able to communicate and see you as a equal fellow human being. It's not possible, right? But in most cases, with most people, discussion is highly effective. Found out someone was talking bad about me, went up to them and said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second? I heard blah 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 blah." Oh yeah, well, and the next thing you know, I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry, and they're giving me a hug, and it's all fine because I just handled it directly, head on, with discussion. Deliberation is pausing and thinking. You won the whole battle if you can just slow down and deliberate, if you can just think before you speak or act, one of my clients today told me her family member sent her a potentially disrupting text message, a potentially dysregulating text message. She didn't respond right away. She took her time. She thought about it, wrote down a couple possible responses, talked to me about it in our session. I'm like, bravo. That's deliberation, taking your time. You'll be surprised how you can win the battle through deliberation. It is brilliant. Taking the time to think. It's meditation. What's deference? Sometimes you recognize that you need to show respect or defer to someone else. Nothing wrong with that. Deference, healthy deference in a relationship. I come home, find out my wife is upset about something. Maybe I just need to defer to her. Why do I have to have a big fight over the situation? It wasn't, is it that important? Let her have what she wants. Sometimes you need to defer to the other person, not to the point of just being a people pleaser. That's taking it to the extreme, but to the point of recognizing and seeing the other person. Hey, what do you need? What do you want? What are you upset about? Because you really wanted to go out to a movie tonight and I suggested we stay in. Thank you for telling me that. It's not even a big deal to me. I would actually love to go out. I tell you what, give me five minutes. I'm gonna go in the other room. I'm gonna make movie plans. We're starting this whole night over again. Okay. And I'm gonna come back in like we made movie plans. Okay. All right. And you're not gonna be able to convince me, no, because we're definitely going to the movies tonight. Come back in. Hey, babe, I made plans for the movies. Get dressed. We gotta go. We gotta be there in 30 minutes. What did I do? I just deferred to the other person. Is this what you want? Is this what you need? It's okay. We can listen to people. Sometimes people are higher in authority. We have bosses and things. Sometimes it's not even an authority thing. It could be lower in authority, but we just ask them, we talk to them about what they want. And if we can defer, you defer and you keep peace. This is the way we stay safe. This is the way we feel safe, by having these skills, by understanding what to apply at what time. No fight, flight, freeze, fawn. 4Ds: discussion, disconnection, deliberation, deference. This way we maintain balance, calm, and inner peace.